boys and girls. So today we're going to talk about thinking about your thinking while you read. So what we're going to talk about today is, have you ever picked up a book and read the same page 10 times and not understand a lick of words that you've read? Or have you ever let your mind wander that you can't focus on the book in front of you? Well, I'm sure we all have done this one time or another, but after today's lesson, you're going to be more aware of why we do that. So, we're going to talk about the fact that we have fake reading. So, fake reading is when a person is able to identify words, pronounce them correctly out loud, and read them, but they don't know what the passage means. They're not thinking. So, I am going to show you an example. I'm going to be reading you the story, The Other Side by Jacqueline Woodson. During this reading, you're going to see I am going to make what I like to call a reading salad. So in my reading salad, I'm going to show you how while I read, I am not only just reading the text, but I am also thinking at the same time. So it might sound kind of strange because normally all this stuff is going on within my mind or within your own mind, but this is kind of to illustrate to you what happens. So watch carefully as I read you The Other Side. All right, ladies and gentlemen, so today I am going to be reading you The Other Side by Jacqueline Woodson. But along with this book, we're going to do an activity. So what I have for you is I have a salad bowl. And when we're doing this activity, I am going to be utilizing different techniques while I'm reading. So for instance, when I'm thinking during my reading, I'm going to put in a green thinking paper. If I'm actually reading the text, I am going to put in red card illustrating that I'm reading directly from the text. Okay, so during this activity, you're going to kind of see off to the side that I'll be doing these things along with reading the book to you. All right, so remember, green for thinking, red for text. Okay, so here we go. The Other Side by Jacqueline Woodson. That summer, the fence stretched through our town seemed bigger. We lived in a yellow house on one side of it. White people lived on the other. And Mama said, "Don't climb over the fence when you play." She said it wasn't safe. So you can see this fence strolled out. So what I'm going to do, I just read the text. So I'm putting my red in my bowl. Okay. Now, read the text and I'm thinking, interesting, because I'm thinking it says here, white people lived on the other. So I am starting to think that maybe this is not 2020. Maybe I'm thinking this could be set back in time a little bit. Okay, I'm going to keep reading. That summer, putting a red in, that summer there was a girl who wore a pink sweater. Each morning she climbed up on the fence and stared over at our side. Sometimes I stared back. She never sat on the fence with anybody. That girl didn't. So there she is in her pink sweater. So I'm thinking it's quite interesting, really, that they're kind of having this little staring contest going back and forth, right? I'm also thinking, I'm wondering why nobody's talked to each other yet. All right. Once, when we were jumping rope, she asked if she could play, and my friend Sandra said no, without even asking the rest of us. I don't know what I would have said maybe yes, maybe no. There she is asking the group. So I read the text. Starting to wonder if maybe the girl who lives there would rather start to talk to her. Trying to get the whole picture in here. There we go. That summer, everyone and everything on the other side of that fence seemed far away. When I asked my mama why, she said, because that's the way things have always been. Sometimes when me and my mama went into town, I saw that girl with her mama. She looks sad sometimes, that girl. Don't stare, my mama said. It's not polite. I'm starting to think they're both checking each other out quite a bit. And I'm wondering if they're maybe going to start to talk to each other soon. Putting my red in for my text. It rained a lot that summer. On rainy days, that girl sat on a fence in a raincoat. She let herself get all wet and acted like she didn't even care. Sometimes I saw her dancing around in puddles, splashing and laughing. Well, I'm thinking to myself, I do love splashing in puddles. Nothing like a rainy day and going puddle stomping. Mama wouldn't let me go out in the rain. That's why I bought you rainy day toys, Mama said. You stay inside here where it's warm and safe and dry. Every time it rained, I looked for that girl, and I always found her somewhere near the fence. Someplace in the middle of the summer, the rain stopped. When I walked outside, the grass was damp, and the sun was high up in the sky. I stood there with my hands up in the air. I felt brave that day. I felt free. Uh-oh. I'm starting to think she might be heading over the fence, going with her friend. Uh-oh, there it is. My prediction is correct. I got close to the fence, and that girl asked me my name. Clover, I said. My name's Annie, she said. Annie Paul. I live over yonder, she said, by where you see the laundry. That's my house. That's my blouse, hanging on the line. She smiled then. She had a pretty smile. I'm thinking, I think we have a friendship going on. And I'm also thinking that it's quite ridiculous that people do things based on color. Then I smiled, and we stood there looking at each other, smiling. It's nice up on this fence, Annie said. You can see all over. I ran my hand along the fence. I reached up and touched the top of it. A fence like this was made for sitting on, Annie said. She looked at me sideways. I'm starting to think that there's a friendship there, and what a great image it's going to be when I have the two of them sitting there. There it is, the hand helping each other. Mama said I shouldn't go to the other side. I said, my mama says the same thing, but she never said nothing about sitting on it. Neither did mine, I say. That summer, me and Annie sat together on the fence. And when Sandra and them looked at me funny, I just made believe that I didn't care. Starting to think, little friendship starting. She doesn't care what her friends think. I think that's a pretty brave thing to do because that's not easy to stand up to friends. Some mornings my mom will watch us. I waited for her to tell me to get down from the fence before I break my neck or something, but she never did. I see you made a new friend, she said one morning. I nodded and my mom smiled. That summer, me and Annie sat on the fence and watched the whole wide world around us. Well, I forgot to put in my ticket for the text, so I'm putting that in my bowl. But I'm starting to think that maybe we in the world should listen to children a little bit more. And I'm starting to think that kids are a lot smarter than we give them credit for. One day, Sandra and them were jumping rope near the fence and asked if we could play. I don't care, Sandra said. And when we jumped, Sandra and me were partners, the way we used to be. And when we were too tired to jump anymore, we sat up on the fence, all of us in a long line. Get them all lined up on the fence, thinking that maybe that fence is that line and they're breaking that barrier. Mm-hmm. Someday somebody's going to come along and knock this old fence down, Annie said. And I nodded, yeah. I said, someday. So I'm thinking there that that fence needs a whole lot more than just a fence. It's really got some extra meaning to it. And I'm thinking that fence kind of shows a bit of prejudice. And I'm also thinking that possibly knocking that fence down would mean that we put an end to prejudice. So I want to show you something. We finished our book. Take a look at my salad. Oh, here, let me mix my salad for you. Look at all the tomatoes and lettuce I've got in there. But what I want you to notice here is the fact that there's just as much thinking as there is the actual text that I'm reading, right? I think a tremendous amount. Notice that many times there was multiple thinking going on for each page while I just read one page. So this is what we like to call real reading. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take a look at a little diagram that I have. All right. So I hope you can see it okay. So this part here, can you see the book is actually a book, right? This part here is actually a head, right? So I want you to think of this almost as a Venn diagram, for instance, okay? So what I want you to do is if you kind of think about this middle spot, where's my pencil? Misplaced my pencil. There it is. Okay. So this middle spot here that I'm shading in so ever lightly, this is kind of where it overlaps, right? So in a typical Venn diagram, this is the part I'm talking about, okay? So I have the book. So the book is going to represent, well, the text, right? It is the book. So the text is what the author has to say. Okay, now let's look at the head. So the head is going to represent thinking. So thinking is what's going on in my head. You might have been thinking something else while I was reading that story, but that was what was going on in my head. Okay, now here's the thing. This middle part is the most important part, the part I love, because where it overlaps is actual real reading. Okay? So what I mean there is the fact that I need the text, but I can't just read and read and read the words without thinking about what's going on. In order to have real reading, I need these two things to go on at the same time, right? Have you ever read a page over and over again? And what you're doing is reading the text, not making any sense, right? There's no thinking going on. Or even the opposite. Have you ever had it where you've read, you're trying to read, but you're thinking about something else, right? So we need to have both of these things going on. So when we have text plus thinking, it is going to equal real reading. And that's what we need to happen. Now, this has a very fancy word. Are you ready for this? You can crush your parents. This is actually called metacognition. And what we are doing with metacognition is we are thinking about our thinking. All right. And that's what I want you to do. Think about your thinking. Think what you're thinking about as you're reading this text. Does it make sense? All right. Okay, boys and girls. So we talked about metacognition. We need to have the text plus thinking in order to get real reading. All right. So how can this help you? So what I'm giving you here are some metacognition thinking stems. So we're thinking about our thinking. So you might say things like, I'm thinking this, or I'm noticing this, I'm wondering this, I'm seeing this, I'm feeling this. All of these are having you thinking about your thinking, right? You're putting together that textual evidence and you're thinking about it. And we need to have those two things happen in order to have real reading. Okay, so as you go about your independent reading, I want you today to really focus on these metacognition thinking stems. I want to see stop and jots that say, I'm thinking, I'm noticing, I'm wondering, I'm seeing, I'm feeling, because that means you are truly thinking about your text and trying to make the most sense of it. All right, boys and girls. All right, now we're going to have lots of real reading and a lot of thinking about our text. Thank you.